Welcome back, friends. In today's episode, I want to talk about what no one really talks about when you are leaving a 9 to 5. And, that could be for a number of reasons, but this episode is for the person who is in the middle of or planning for that transition. And maybe you're leaving a corporate environment, or maybe you are leaving your field altogether, or maybe you are leaving, a toxic or abusive workplace culture or just workplace, and you're charting a new path for yourself, right? Whether that's, you working at another 9 to 5, or you're going on into entrepreneurship. And, what I find that people do and what happens is that, you either leave and recreate the same dynamics in a new place, right? And by the way, this happens in like amorous relationships when people like jump from like one relationship to another with a like really short amount of time. Or you leave and you fester, right, in the anger and or the pain that you felt in that toxic workplace, which in a lot of ways keeps you hostage in the pain of what happened. And either way, whether, you are the person who, is recreating, or you're the person who is festering, both of these obviously happen unconsciously. I find that there's usually a detox and restore period that we don't talk about. And that's why people either, people fall into one of these two buckets. We don't talk about it. A lot of people don't know about it. And it is so incredibly important. I think that this is important with any transition period, whether that is professional, interpersonal, like whatever. It could look so many different ways. But the point is that we don't talk enough about it. And I think that's why a lot of us, myself included, ends up in situations where we're like, damn, I just like left that place. And why don't I necessarily feel better? And if you've done a food detox, for example, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's very similar. And, you first have to be like really honest about what happened, right? And a lot of workplace, tricky dynamics, or just like workplaces, period, they mirror the same dynamics that we find in interpersonal relationships, right? Like abuse, dependency, people pleasing, control, whether that's financial or professional, put downs, like all of these things happen in workplaces. And part of that detox and restore period is that we need to be honest about what happened. Like we need to be really honest about our feelings and be able to sit with those feelings so that we can then metabolize it into wisdom. A lot of times when we are leaving a 9 to 5, especially if, we have other responsibilities, or it's just like like a less than ideal situation, we are so quick to jump into the next thing. We're just so quick to just keep it pushing. Now we never have the time to just like pause. What the fuck just happened? Right? Like what happened to me there? What was done to me there? What did I tolerate there? Etc. Like just really being with that inquiry process is just so important so that again, you don't find yourself recreating the same dynamics or repressing what happened to you. After you can identify those feelings, right? Be with those feelings, be with those experiences, and you can metabolize and alchemize it into wisdom that you can, use for whatever next thing you're going to do. Then it's really important for you to be able to nurture yourself back to health. And this is the part where I think a lot of people are like, girl, it's really not that serious. And, I want to lovingly tell you that it is, right? Like it is serious. I don't think that we really understand because work is just such an, like a essential part of our society, our culture, of our lives. Like, I don't think that we really understand just the toll and the impact that our work environments have on everything, every part of our lives, right? Our relationship, how we feel, etc. And this is maybe not a popular opinion, but the workforce is designed to extract from you, right? Like that is just the truth because of the history of work in this country and really the world. And of course, right, like there are many places, especially in recent years, that are really putting forth like a lot of effort in, changing workplace culture and are aware, very intentional about, kind of fighting back, against the ways that work has been, traditionally. But I'd venture to say that most places are designed, right? Like they're inherently designed to get the most that they can out of you, right? Like it's not a judgment call. It is just the way that it's designed, right? So let's just think about it for a second. Do you realize that the only way that a company, an institution, a place of higher learning, like whatever, makes a profit is if they can get more from you than what they're paying you? And that's just simple math. That's not like a Josie thing. It's just math. And, it's not like this profit goes to offering you, I don't know, like better fringe benefits, right? It typically goes to the people up top. And unfortunately, that's the system that we live in. And it's the system that we've always lived in. Okay. And so we have to look at things contextually. Our experiences, our lives at work play a very big part of our overall lives unless we consciously and intentionally choose to not make it so. Remember before when I said that when you're leaving toxic work environment or whatever, you either like leave and recreate the same dynamics, or you like leave and fester and in anger and end up feeling like stuck. In my personal experience, I did the latter. And, just for like quick context here, I was told, and again, like if you've been listening to my podcast, you probably know my story. But in case anyone is listening and you don't know, I'm just going to give you a quick like rundown. When I became a therapist, I was told that I couldn't do good in the world while also doing well for myself. And not only did I do that in less than a year, but then I created a business teaching therapists how to do the same. And so it was like my version of F you, right? You don't tell me what to do. And the you being, this like larger system, like you don't get to tell me what to do, especially when what you're telling me to do is harmful as hell. Right. And like, in fact, if I think back, when I created my website copy for my business coaching company, I proudly included that I had turned my anger into action. And that's why I created my business, which is true. Right. But I didn't realize then to what extent my anger and my disappointment around my experience was really playing a part in my business. And so here's the thing, like I knew that I was angry, right? I was angry because of how the mental health field like didn't really care about the well-being and like the long-term health and prosperity of mental health clinicians. I was angry because I saw firsthand how vulnerable populations, especially people who looked and sound like me, paid the price of greed. I was angry because I was required to be someone else. Actually, I was asked to be like every other therapist to help the people that I wanted to help. And I was also really angry because I felt really lonely in fighting back. It was as if the therapists around me, many of whom I like loved and respected, were in a trance, brainwashed with lies, or kind of stuck in quicksand, right? Like in this fear of being ousted from an elite club, which is not really elite club, but whatever. And, I was kind of like one of the few saying like, no, like that's not true. Like these things are lies. Like you can have a different experience. Like, come, I did it. I can show you. Like, come, I'll show you. And, thankfully now it's not at all like that, but when I first started doing this work 5, 6 years ago, most therapists just didn't have the awareness that they do now. So yeah, I was pretty angry. I was angry at a lot of things. And, I hadn't softened enough to admit that underneath that anger was sadness and pain. And, there's a lot of vulnerability involved in admitting that, and admitting in some ways that I got. And, that's a tough pill to swallow when you come from where I come from, both as a native New Yorker, like, if you know, you know, and also as a daughter of immigrants, right? Who like we're used to making a way where there isn't one. So like getting got is just, we just can't afford that. It took a while for me to admit the sadness and the disappointment underneath the anger. For a long time, I held a shield close to my chest. And I mean, if I'm keeping it a buck, like I just rejected everything that reminded me of that season. And so in a way, my pendulum really kind of swung all the way to the left. And, I will share this very transparently that because of that, in many ways, I showed up in some of the ways that my oppressor did. Right. And again, when I think about the oppressor, I'm thinking about these systems that are designed to keep us small and sick and all the bullshit. In many ways, I used the master's tools thinking that I was going to dismantle the master's house. And, when I think about the tools, I think about this anger, right? When I think about this, well, I'm going to show you, like you think, I'm about to show you, right? Like those are the master's tools. Those aren't my tools, right? Like those aren't my people's tools, but those are definitely the master's tools. And I was using these tools because I didn't have that detox and restored period. Like I was just like everybody else, it was like go, 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 go. Like there's stopping. What the fuck is that? Like we don't do that. I mean, that's what I thought then, not now. Like I likes to chill now. But back then, like that just wasn't part of my repertoire. And it was unconscious and, with the best intentions in the world, of course, but that's just it. And why, like if you get anything from this episode is this piece. Like you could want something so bad, but if you don't do the work to clean your tools and to clean the house that you're trying to bring something new in, it's just more of the same. Like you're going to end up being frustrated and feeling frustrated and kind of like you're hitting your head against the wall because the how matters as much as the what. And it wasn't until I was chatting with a friend that I was able to put language to all of this that I'm now able to speak to you about and make a podcast episode about. It wasn't until kind of that conversation and then the subsequent process that I was really able to soften into my pain. So often, it's definitely my experience, so often our pain, the first thing it does is that it hardens us. And in order for us to heal, any type of healing will work, no matter if it's like professional trauma, church trauma, relationship trauma, like it doesn't matter. We need to learn and be in community with people that are safe enough for us to soften to our pain. And, I realized that a lot of, what I created out of this unconscious pain and anger, right? Again, it was like to prove this big bad wolf being this field, kind of like, oh, you thought you was gonna come and you was gonna mess with me. Well, I'm gonna show you. And so here's the thing too, that like even though yes that happened, like I did some incredible things. Like I can recognize that. Like I'm sure that anyone here that's like listening can attest to the fact that even when we are experiencing some of the worst pain, we could still create beauty. And I did that, right? I really helped people achieve some incredible things, some incredible phenomenal results, right? Like I know that I'm not disowning that, right? Even with this awareness of kind of the pain and the anger that was anchoring it, like I'm not gonna disown the good that I did, right? And the transformations that I was able to facilitate, right? Like I'm proud of that. And that came at a cost, I've now realized, right? Like I said before, the how matters as much as the what. And so, with this awareness, now I get to create something that, might produce similar or even better outcomes, but the anchor is different. And like the how is different. The driver is different. It is no longer my anger or my need to prove that I'm not going to get got that's driving what I do or what I go towards, but rather wisdom, right? This place of deep knowing, this place of inner safety, right? Which I'm always talking about. This place of unshakable truth, a place that despite all the BS and all the things you go through, that it's the place that remains unscathed, right? Like you can even think about that as your faith. And so, to kind of wrap up here, if you find yourself in a place where, you're leaving a toxic workplace or relationship or industry, I want to invite you to resource yourself for you to be able to detox and restore, whatever that looks like for you, right? Like, I'm not saying like, oh, you got to go and take a month off and like go to Bali or go live in a cabin and like become a hermit. Like, that's not what I'm saying. My process was incredibly active and in the middle of a lot of very active things, so it can look like a number of different things. The point is that you are aware of the importance and that you go towards resourcing yourself in this way. Again, just like having the awareness that you need to detox can do so much. So, that alone, like you listening to this episode and maybe even talking about it with someone as you prepare for this transition, or if you're just kind of coming out of that transition, I think can do a lot. Like, find the community, read the books, work with a practitioner, that can hold that sacred space for you to let go of the layers that you probably had to put on to survive in that place, relationship, whatever. So find the person that can hold that space for you so that you can remember who you truly are, and you no longer just have to lead with the version of you that you had to create to survive. All right, y'all. That is it for this episode. I am sending you all tons and tons of love. Again, if you are preparing or in the middle or just coming out of this type of transition, just know that I see you. The courage that it takes to do something different is just something that needs to be celebrated. And I am celebrating you. I will catch you next week.